All right. Going back to those discussions that we had here regarding the Zohar and the intro to Kabbalah. Um, Yesterday we spoke about the difference between simple will and that we were talking about, and what we have in terms of our will, people that we have choice, and so on. The Zohar calls that simple will Ra'ava dekol Ra'avin. In other words, the wills of all wills, the mother of all wills. Ra'ava dekol Ra'avin. And those of you who, before Kiddush on Shabbat, say parts of the Zohar, know what I'm referring to, what I'm talking about. And Ra'ava dekol Ra'avin refers to the source and the root of all the other wills and all the other revelation of wills to the details in which they're going to come out, whichever going to be there. That the Ratzon Pashut, what we call the Ein Sof, is therefore the roots for everything that happened in the future, happening now. I mean, happened in the past, happening now will happen in the future as well. In other words, the Ein Sof, the endless part of it, includes all reality itself, everything. In order to make things a little bit more, more understood, we could use a different concept that has it, and that of course is math, as we were talking yesterday. And if we talk about an endless number, right, we're talking about a number that there's no greater from it, right? So the sages of Kabbalah see in that concept even more than that. An endless number is a number that all the other numbers near it or around it are dismissed by it. Just like the concept of zero is batel near any other number, even an endless number minus one would be dismissible in proximity to the endless number, as much as the zero is batil to it, so therefore any other number. Therefore, it comes out from that all numbers in comparison to the endless number are dismissible. To what we are saying to here, a whole entire reality, and what reality was since the time of creation until now, with all the details and details of all this, the little segments of reality, it is batel umevutal. It's completely dismissed in comparison to the Ratzon Pashut, as we said before, which is the Ein Sof, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. Everything. In other words, we are so obsessed with the reality and us and this and this and that, and in a way there is no better way to get further away from God by thinking that your reality is the only reality and it is the absolute reality. In other words, we're being so obsessed with and involved with yourself, you are basically removing yourself further and further from God. And since we get to this pasuk, or to this place, we can actually use a pasuk, a verse in Tehillim, Kuf Yud Gimel 113, that says, Mi ke'elokeinu amagbi'i lashavet, amishpili li'ot bashamayim u'ba'aretz. The greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and his mightiness is in that he's so up, aloof, and far, that in comparison to him, heaven and earth are dismissed. The universe is dismissed because it's completely nothing, because there are only is derivatives, creation. And from here you can add a tremendous answer to all those people who would claim that in a way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that God pays attention only to the angels and only up in heavens and so on and so forth. But they are absolutely kofir, they are dismissing themselves in the concept of Hashgacha Pratit on all the small creatures in this world. In other words, that God is involved with the heavens, he's not involved with the people. And this is a complete nonsense. Because in comparison to the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in comparison to to what we call Ein Sof, which is the endless, right? Everything, whether it's big or small, is considered like a zero in front of him. In comparison to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what is the greatest thing in the world? I don't know. Let's say Mount Everest. Mount Everest is the same magnitude or the same value in comparison with God to a microbe or a proton to the universe. It's all zero to him, next to him. On the contrary, the greatness of God is being expressed by that he is able to be mashgiach, he is able to monitor each and every particle of creation without any distinguish between one another, greatness, small, big, important, not important. It's all, and that's what we say when we say, and during Yom Kippur or Yomim Noraim, the Ashkenazim say, Hashave ve'mashve gadol ve'katan, who makes great and small equal. In other words, God does not, if you, for example, are a very important person, God does not consider you differently than the smallest person who is insignificant, God forbid, laying down in the trenches in some downtown LA as a homeless people. You could be the president of the United States and you could be a homeless person. In the eyes of God, you equal. Everything is equal in the eyes of God because absolutely everything is nothing in the eyes of God. And that's why the greatness of a person will be determined by its closeness to God, by its self-dismissing of himself and his needs towards the will of God. And that's what brings us to be able to try to talk about the distinction between the divine will and human will. And we could distinguish between the two in few different measures, in two different ways. So the first one will be that human will always be arised by a certain purpose or for need for a certain purpose. And that purpose is what limits your will. The divine will, on the other hand, is not limited at all. He can do whatever he wants. So the limitation that we put on ourselves is by what we want to achieve. Okay? The other one is that human will is only a stage among other stages in the process of executing what we call min hakoach el hapoal, from a thought to an action. Doing the action is the last stage and maybe the most important stage in the whole entire process. It's not enough, for example, for a person wants something. Your will by itself could not operate anything. The action in which will bring you to something to happening that needs other stages as well. And we said that the poal, the action, is adif ala koach, is better than a thought by itself. In other words, it's not enough that you're thinking good things. It will be very important that you would actually do good things. You might be thinking very wonderful things and actually executing them badly or doing wrong things. Well, that's not good enough. That's not going to do it. So therefore, the action is what important. I might, for example, want to learn the whole entire Torah and finish Gemara and doing this and doing this. Is that a good thing to think? Yes. Of course, it's much better than thinking of how to cheat and to steal and to do this or the other. You agree with me? Yes, everybody would agree with me. However, if I actually never did that, what good is that thought? It's actually nothing. It's absolutely nothing. So the action at the end is always important, and it's more important than the thought. And when it comes to the divine will, it's completely different. The divine will is reality itself. And when the divine will is being awakened to do something, as soon as that ratzon, as that will arises, that whatever that needed to be done would be done. The divine will includes within itself both the koach and the poal, both the thought and the action and everything else in between. It is one. It is inseparable. And it's very difficult for us to accept such concepts or such ideas because we are very used to the fact that our will is something abstract, is something that it's not tangible, and it's something that in our thought it's against nature. It can't be that by me thinking about something that something will happen. That action will be done by just me thinking about it. But and David HaMelech also wrote about this. And he says, "Hu amar vayehi, v'tziva v'yamod." He says something, and that happened immediately, right? And he commended it, and that was established. He says, "Let the vayi or," and then let it be light, and there was light. There was no, okay, let me just try to call Home Depot, let me call Con Edison, and let me call this, let me get. No, he said it will be done. And that's what we said also in Masechet Avot. Chazal says, "Ba'asara ma'amarot nivra ha'olam." In other words, God said one thing, and that's it. Boom, Bereshit. HaKadosh Baruch Hu thought about it, and that's so it happened. And in order to maybe better understand it, we could use, for example, a different example. Let's say you have a master, right, or you have a boss. When you telling your loyal worker or your loyal slave or whatever it is to move something, you say, "Do me a favor, Moshe, please take this chair and move it over there," right? So take this item or take this chair and move it from this place to this place. We could definitely see and distinguish it as a period between, as a pause between the commandment and the actual moving of the chair. Because it says that Moshe, let's say Moshe is sitting there, Moshe, please take this chair and put it over there. So between the words that I said, there was a few seconds or maybe a minute until Moshe got up from his chair and he picked up the chair that I told him and he put somewhere else, right? In other words, between the machshava of the boss to the action of the worker or the master and the slave. However, when the Kadosh Baruch Hu did this, it was completely different. And what would it be? Let's say I am the master, right? And I want to move that object myself, right? So I don't see that separation. You just see me getting up and taking the chair and moving it, right? As soon as I'm doing so. Or let's say I see a fly, instinctively I'm put my hands and I smack it, right? The hands of the body will move immediately, right? As soon as I'm thinking to do so. So when I want for example, to say something, the words come up to my mouth, and that's how I talk. Right? I don't just say, okay, let me think about it. That's the process of thinking. That's why you cannot talk when you're just like a little child. And one of the reasons that babies, for example, human babies are much more, take longer to develop than animal. Let's say, for example, you have a calf. As soon as the calf is born, is able to stand and is able to talk in cow language. I don't know, whatever they speak over there, right? And the cow understands what the baby wants. But for us, it takes longer to do so. And the reason is because our needs and our abilities are much more complex. So we need time for the brain to actually process those things. And that's why speech, we start talking much later, because you need to accumulate the vocabulary and concepts and so on and so forth. So our limbs work immediately, they're corresponding with the brain immediately they want. And the reason is because the will inside of me, I notice a certain need or will inside of me. I don't want to use the word need because that kind of can take things out of context. The will, to do something came out. And then I see the actions of the limbs of my body actually doing that and turning it into one reality, which is a reality. When a person has a disconnect, he wants something and he can't do it. Let's say, for example, a person suffer I don't know, a major catastrophe. He has a broken spine or something. He can't move his limb. There's a disconnect, right? The spinal cord is broken. There's a disconnect. Or somebody lost his arm. He wants his arm to move, but it's disconnected from the body. He can't do that. You need the connection between that. By HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it works completely different. So therefore, the whole entire reality itself, our reality that we have today, is filled with the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with the essence of God immediately. Because as soon as the ratzon of the person to do a certain action is that Ratzon of Hakadosh Baruch Hu comes. In other words, Hakadosh Baruch Hu is the one who anoten lecha koach la'asot poal. You know, so when you do something, you only do so because God had allowed you to do it. Because if Hakadosh Baruch Hu did not want you to do something with all your will in the world, you can't do that. So therefore, you need to understand that your actions themselves are guided by God. However, He allowed you a certain liberty and autonomy to do what you want. He doesn't interfere with you, but it has to be with the permission from above to do things. And in the writings of the Ari, we found over and over again expressions that the Ari uses all the time. Like, for example, "V'kasher ala b'rtzono hapashut livro olamot." When he wanted, in his simple will, we call it, for lack of better terms, to create the world, or "Omnam kasher ala b'rtzono hapashut lehatzil olamot u'leotzi kochot el ha'poal." As soon as HaKadosh Baruch Hu, quote unquote, thought about it, the action was done, immediately was done. And it was done in its most finished form. Whether it's a process that will take, but that happened. That happened in the end of, that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu could see what happened in the end of times, could determine what will happen with the person at the end of times in any different aspect of his life. In other words, all avenues are open and everything is already determined in terms of what you would do. However, what is not determined is which path you would take. And that's a very important concept to understand. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows that if you're going to sit in Yeshiva and learn and you be Shomer Torah and Mitzvot, this will happen from you at the end. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu also knows that if you would not do so, what will happen in the end? Which path you would go, that's already up to you. That's already up to you. And that's not given to men to know. We cannot tell what will happen in the future. Now, if, for example, I would tell you, let's say I want to make a business. I don't know. Give me a very not important, some kind of a crazy business I want to do. I don't know. I want to give classes. My business it is to give classes in Japanese flower arrangement. People are going to tell me, "Well, are you kidding me? You can't make any money with this. You can do so as a hobby. You cannot do it like this." And the answer will be, "I'm sorry, what are you, God? Can you tell the future?" You could predict things based on your patterns that this could happen. But when you are a believing person, you understand that everything in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and for all you know, if God wants you to do, you could give classes in Japanese flower arrangement to become a billionaire over this, if that's God's will. But the question is, do you know what God's will is? Can you align your wills alongside with God's will? Then you'll be successful. And now, for example, another difference in that, right, would be, so what we were talking before, when we said the words kasher ala b'rtzono, when he wanted that, right, it is enough in the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to create and to form everything. And when I say HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants, God wants, in other words, it means God does. Wants and does by him is the same thing. For us, doing and not is not. And that's a very interesting point to bring about when Moshe Rabbeinu says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, "Mecheni na misifrecha," right? Or, for example, when God said, "I will make you legol gadol tu varav," I will make you to a great nation. God would allow you to intervene when Moshe Rabbeinu says, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu when Moshe told HaKadosh Baruch Hu, "Please wipe up me, don't wipe me up from my book," and HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, "Fine, I would salachti kidvarecha, I would forgive you," because God allowed this when bad things happen through our pleading to go back on His word. But when God promises something good, God says, "I'm not going to go back on my word." So therefore, the question is, what is that promise that Kadosh Baruch Hu made Moshe? "Ve'ascha legoy gadol," I will make you like a great nation. We're yet to see what that exactly means. Another difference is that after a person does whatever he wanted to do, there is not really any more a connection between that person and his creation. For example, if I paint, and by the way, you should check my painting blog. It's what's my painting blog? Spirit, yeah, one word, freespiritart.wordpress.com. Check it out. It's a very nice thing. That's my paintings. So some of my paintings I sold, some of my paintings I gave. So when I gave my paintings out, I don't have any more connections with my paintings. They were giving out. When I sold it, I gave it out. When a carpenter makes a table, he takes his tables and he gives it out. There's no more creation, there's no more connection between the person and his creation and stuff like this. With HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's not the case. It's not the case whatsoever. Because if the carpenter, for example, built the table and then he gave the table or sold the table to somebody else, that table doesn't have any function anymore into the carpenter's life, and the carpenter does not feel any function anymore in the table's, quote unquote, life. But this is not the case when it comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The divine will not only does things, HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not only create something out of nothing, but on the contrary, it continues to sustain it, to maintain it, and to revive it. And it is at the moment that there's going to be a will not to continue this connection between whatever it is in creation and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that item would stop to exist, would not just die, it will disappear and cease to exist. Because there cannot be any existence between of anything in the universe, in our reality, without the complete interaction and supervision of God to that item. And that's what we say all the time. Boreh betuvo b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh bereshit. HaKadosh Baruch Hu interacts with the world every single day as he interacted with the world in the time of Bereshit. In the time of creation, God wanted to create the world. So he created the world. And the only way the world is being created, is being maintained right now, is because of God's intervention in the world the way it was in the first day of creation. And we need to understand that. And that is Mechadesh Betuvo, in his kindness, Mechadesh Betuvo Maaseh Bereshit. What does that mean? One of the meanings, one interaction is the involvement of God in the world as he was in the 6 days of creation. So for those people who tell you that God has forgotten and God is this, and it's a fool. Is a fool talking. You might as well listen to the donkeys speak or to the birds, tweet, not Twitter, for the birds to tweet and to some idiot to talking like that, because it's absolutely stupid. Because as soon as God does not want to something in existence and interaction, that thing would disappear, would vanish, would not die, would vanish. And we need to remember that. And therefore, for all those people, maybe one day we'll talk a little bit about other things, and evolution and stuff like this. But that's something. There's a concept that you must understand, that you must grasp, you must understand, and it's fundamental. And if you would go through and you're aware and so on, you will see how blessed you are with your life, because what you have is because what God wanted you to have. And if he didn't want me to have something else, so therefore there's no desire for me to have something someone else has. And you ultimately become happier in your world because you understand that everything that you have, small or big, is a gift from God. That's why you should never feel alone, because you know that Melo kol haaretz kvodo, God's essence fills everything in creation. So God is around you all the time. And if you do so and you understand so, Mimeli, you're not going to do any averot, because God is around you all the time. And you can talk to him whenever you want. And you can interact with him whenever you want. And that's why you can pray at home. God does not only exist in synagogues and temples, he also in your home. So the issue is how sincere when you pray to him, even at home, how sincere you are. Understanding that, I think, would elevate your game altogether. There's no need for you to be mityayesh. There's no need to give up and to ask questions and so on and so forth. And it's a tremendous point of strength. You know that God is around you all the time, always, always. And at this point, I would also like to acknowledge our great thanks to our friends, Mr. G, that helped us, and and to Rachel Chaya Batsara, and to our dear friend Mike, and everybody else who is helping us in the yeshiva in this difficult time. However, you know, it's good that Baruch Hashem, thank God, we're able to continue our learning every single day with passion and desire. And I hope that this will be a true chance for each and every one of us to have an experience, a true revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in our lives and the way he interacts with the world. And may be ratzon milifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu שנזכה כולנו לראות מהרה באורו. We should see the great light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we should see his Shechina Shora Alenu Shuv Begalui, his divine presence would dwell upon us in the opening, and Bidu Kol Amei Haaretz, and all the nations of the world would know that She'ata Hu Elokim, that God is the God of all gods. And we shall all live in peace and harmony from this point on. Have a wonderful day. Next time, Be'ezrat Hashem, God willing, because everything is done with God willing, we should be talking about lights and how the revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is being exposed, being revealed through the spiritual enlightenment. So stay tuned, boys and girls, and please behave and say hello to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because he's near you all the time. Have a great day.